Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies. I'm James A. Janice, and today we're looking at Midsommar, a co-production of the US and Sweden released in 2019. And yeah, I'll be pronouncing it Midsommar, even though writer-director Ari Aster says it differently.
Midsommar is something of a companion to Hereditary.
Pronunciations were difficult to nail down for this one. I'll do my best. Midsommar is a folk horror film, a niche subgenre that includes classics like the original Wicker Man. It's Aster's second feature film after his incredible debut Hereditary, and like Hereditary, Midsommar is about grief and relationships. But while the two titles share those themes and Aster's precise visual style, they're different in a lot of big ways. Hereditary was dark, not just tonally, but visually too. Scares crept out of the shadows, and every corner threatened to release a new terror. Midsommar, conversely, is one of the brightest horror movies I've ever seen, taking place in Sweden during the longest days of the year. I love daylight horror, and although I wouldn't call Midsommar as terrifying as Hereditary, I do find it more disturbing and difficult to watch. It's conspiratorial and psychedelic, with everyone always minutes away from having a bad trip. Heaviest of all is the awkward slow-motion dissolution of a relationship. Ari Aster wrote Midsommar as a way to process the real-life breakup he was going through. That first-hand experience makes for a very realistic and uncomfortable watch, especially if you've ever been in a failing partnership. And yet the movie is beautiful, and also hilarious. Between Aster's meticulous filmmaking and the immense talent of his cast, Midsommar makes you laugh, disgusts you, and leaves you totally confused. It's visual storytelling at its finest, with so much meaning and emotion conveyed through simple mastery of the camera. A single shot can say sentences, a rack focus can replace a paragraph. While I don't count it among my personal favorites, I respect the hell out of this movie. Although, fair warning, it's a real heavy watch. Outside of the imploding relationship, there are instances of self-harm, indoctrination, and rape. This movie could really affect you depending on how you're feeling that day, so treat it like that Bo Burnham special, and make sure you're in the right headspace to watch it. This is also one of those movies that has so much to discuss, I can't fit it all in a kill count, even one that's extra long. That's why you should check out the podcast episode we did, where Chelsea and I discussed Midsommar more in depth. Can a movie have that many kills when it takes place mostly in broad daylight? Well, it won't be hard to find them, so let's start looking. The movie begins with a gorgeous tapestry that gives way to a snowy tableau. Wait, this ain't no middle of summer. This some winter shit if I've ever seen it. Dani Ardor is dealing with a scary message she got from her sister, one that makes it extra concerning that nobody's answering her calls to home. She turns to her boyfriend Christian for comfort, but this is a recurring situation, and he blames her for worrying too much.
She does this every other day, Dani, and only because you let her.
Well, I don't let her. She's bipolar,
Yeah,
so...
I know, but you do though, babes. You go straight to crisis mode.
Right off the bat, we can tell what's going on here. Every line in this conversation is perfectly delivered to show this is a dying relationship.
I'm very lucky to have you.
Yeah, well,
I love you.
I love you.
Dani is worried she's pushing Christian away by being too codependent, and she ain't wrong. Dude is not a good boyfriend for her, and he's known it for a while.
You've been wanting out of this stupid relationship for like a year now.
His buddy Mark would rather Christian chase after hot waitresses, while Josh suggests he focus on his struggling PhD thesis. Neither appreciate when Dani calls back right away, but hold on a minute, fellas. Let's hear what she has to say.
Hey.
Oh, cries of anguish. Should have guessed, since this is an Ari Aster movie, which also should have hinted that a tragedy's just occurred. In an eerie and powerful scene, emergency workers find Dani's entire family dead in their home. Her parents have been poisoned to death with carbon monoxide, murdered by their daughter and Dani's sister Terry, who has also killed herself. Turns out Dani was right to be concerned. With Dani wailing from this world-rendering loss, it's probably not the best time for Christian to break up with her. That means they'll be together this entire snowy winter. Damn, really snowy out there. I can barely even see this title car. 6 months later, Dani's still reeling. She hasn't fully processed her loss, and it's left her a shell of a person. Dani's huge emotional arc in this film is played to perfection by Florence Pugh, a phenomenal young English actor who I really enjoyed as Paige in Fighting with My Family. At a party, Dani learns that Christian has summer travel plans. In 2 weeks, he'll be visiting Horga, the home village of his friend Pelle in Sweden. He didn't tell Dani he was going on this month-long trip, which causes an awkward argument. And once again, the miscommunication between them is a immense, and it's not Danny's fault one bit.
Look, I don't mind you going. I just wish you would have told me, that's all.
Kristen is an evasive liar and gaslights Danny in a way that sadly might feel familiar to some viewers.
I'm not trying to attack you.
It
I'm not.
really feels like you are.
Well then I'm sorry. I just got confused.
Christian is so conflict avoidant, he invites Danny along on their trip. He tells his friends it's cool because he knows she won't actually come. He's wrong though, Danny's down.
That's not completely ruining your guys' plans.
Oh, no, not at all. No.
It's obviously ruining Mark's plans, and while he pulls Christian aside to complain, Pele welcomes Danny with a smile. He tells her they'll be visiting his home during a 9-day festival. And check it out, free cough rocks, white as the Haley Bop's tail. Pele tells Danny he's glad she's joining them, but when he tries to offer sympathy for her loss, she can't handle the topic and flees into a bathroom, which turns itself into an airplane restroom in an excellent time jump transition. But try to keep it down, Danny. No crying on the plane, okay? They arrive in Stockholm and take a 4-hour drive north towards Pele's village, which I guess is in the Upside Down. Now, actually, this is just a really cool shot, which Ari Aster's movies are full of. Midsommar's cinematographer was Pavel Pogorzelski, who's worked with Aster for years, including on Hereditary. While Aster focuses on composition and camera movement, Pogorzelski handles lighting and the look of the film. It seems like an essential partnership that I hope to see plenty more of. While still inverted, we enter Hosengland, where Pele's commune resides. First, though, he introduces some Horgas, including his best bro Ingmar, who's been studying in London. Ingmar has brought some British friends here, Simon and Connie, and he's also brought the party, because he breaks out the shrooms. Mark and Josh are down to get silly with psilocybin right away, but Danny's still trying to get her set and setting right, so she tries to opt out. Another awkward social dilemma leads Danny to take the drug to avoid having a conflict. And honestly, someone taking hallucinogens while they're in Danny's headspace is enough to make this a horror movie all by itself. Godspeed, girl. Few movies depict drug effects as accurately as Midsommar. In this first trippy scene, it nails the mild confusion and anxiety that can happen.
I'm not okay.
Oh, fuck. It's a new person.
What? I don't want new people right now.
It also doesn't go overboard with the visual effects. Danny's hallucinations are minor and have to do with textures. They're subtle sensory things, like when Pele points out the trees are breathing. But an errant line reminds her of the trauma she's trying to ignore,
You guys are like my family.
and her trip takes a turn for the worse. Aw, Dan, those strangers aren't laughing at you. No, come on now, don't go in there. You're liable to see dead sisters behind you. I mean, shit, a mirror in the dark? You're just asking for a bad time. Danny runs into the woods, and after a short little 6-hour nap, the drugs wear off.
Is it tomorrow?
I mean, from yesterday's perspective.
Yeah, mostly. They walk through woods and overhead shots to get to Pele's beautiful village of Horga, where the plant life is in full bloom and the music is diegetic. That's such a funny joke to me. That music had been playing on the soundtrack for 2 minutes through all these shots of them hiking, and when they get to Horga, we see it's coming from a little concert. Also, there's a cow here. That's funny too for some reason. Pele's village of Horga is our setting for the rest of the film, and what a setting it is. This picture-perfect commune was constructed in a wild field in Hungary, just outside of Budapest. Aster flew there to begin pre-production the day after Hereditary was released.
I didn't even really have an opportunity to experience the release of Hereditary, which was my first film.
Midsommar's crew had to landscape the entire area before building 10 structures from scratch, some as tall as 3 stories. This wholesale construction of a rustic setting reminds me of Robert Eggers' films, since he did the same thing for The Witch and The Lighthouse. All 3 of these movies benefit greatly from these settings, which allow the viewers and the cast to lose themselves in the story.
It is a bit of a dream being able to live and work and play and act in this space.
They're welcomed into this idyllic locale and follow a trail of cult kids over to a small stage. There, a Horga leader named Siv speaks to the crowd, initially in their native tongue. In the early scenes at the commune, Midsommar doesn't have subtitles to translate the Swedish. It's a good way to make the viewer feel the same alienation as the American characters. Siv switches to English to welcome the outsiders here for this once every 90 years festival. It's a 9-day ceremonial feast that kicks off tomorrow, but that don't mean we can't have fun tonight. We'll start with finger painting, since this kid Ruben seems to be enjoying it, have some lemonade for refreshments, and if we're feeling frisky, we can even run around holding hands. Uh-oh, what's going on here? I think Christian's feeling frisky.
Can anyone just join in?
Oh, you're an American, just jam yourself in there.
It's Danny's birthday today, and while Pele remembered and drew her a gift, turns out Christian forgot.
I forgot to remind him, and it's not his fault.
Girl, it is his fault. Respect yourself. The guy can't even remember how long you've been together.
Just over 3.5 years?
4 years.
No. Really?
Yeah.
Catch that 6-month difference there? For Christian, the relationship ended back in winter. Since then, he's been completely checked out. The outsiders are shown around Horga. You got your runic alphabet, your triangle temple, your bear.
So we're just gonna ignore the bear then?
It's a bear.
Yeah, it's a bear, dude. There's also a foreshadowing tapestry that I'll have to censor for YouTube, since it depicts pubic hair and menstrual blood being cooked into a man's food to make him fall in love with a woman. Not even a fairy tale romance like that could pass YouTube standards. Pele takes them to Horga's main building, a gigantic communal bedroom for the younger Horgas, which I believe is the plural form of Horgan, a resident of Horga, I think. Reminder that they built this motherfucking building from scratch. I cannot get over how awesome that is. Big ups to production designer Henrik Svensson, one of Ari Aster's mostly Hungarian crew. Svensson also designed these paintings done by Swedish artist Ragnar Persson, which were based on actual murals in Hälsingland, the Norrland region in which Horga resides. Pele explains that Horga thinks of life in sets of 18. You're a child until 18, a young adult until 36, of working age until 54, and then an elder mentor until you're 72.
What happens at 72?
Haha, yeah! Funny joke. While Danny's looking at pictures of the town's May Queens, Pele informs Christian of his birthday blunder. He tries to give her a piece of, birthday bread, but come on, both of you. This relationship's as faulty as that candle. Let it die.
You didn't think I forgot, did you?
Yes, I did, because you definitely forgot.
I'm sorry.
You should be. The next day, the festival begins in earnest, complete with ladies dancing and picking flowers backwards. They're waiting for the dinner bell to do the bell thing, and when the dinner bell dings, an elderly couple approaches. These two Horgas, Dan and Ilva, are the guests of honor here, meaning they get to kick off this synchronized supper. 10 out of 10, y'all. After some nom-noms, the two stand up and chant, during which they intensely breathe in and out a few times. Kind of the reverse of what Danny did a minute ago. The elderly couple takes a shot, but these lightweights get knocked to their asses so hard they have to get carried to the next part of the ceremony, which for some reason involves a dude with a mallet. That can't be good. Everyone's here for the Ada Stupa, a practice that comes from Scandinavian folklore. It's a ritualistic genocide wherein elderly people throw themselves from a cliff, apparently to spare their community the burden of having to take care of them. There are doubts that it ever actually occurred in history, though it was depicted humorously in the Netflix show Norsemen.
It's a matter of honor, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the Ättestupa is probably the most honorable thing you can do.
Honor is really important, Bill.
Yes.
Yep.
I won't pass judgment on what these folks are choosing to do to themselves, but it is fucked up that most of the outsiders don't know what they're about to see. When Danny realizes what's happening, it takes her breath away.
No!
Oh my god, that was brutal! And gnarly, patrons! Look at how gnarly this is! Jesus Christ. That had to rip some scabs off for Danny. Simon and Connie are upset too, though Ingmar tells them it's okay. And this one lady's all like, what's the big deal? The second high diver steps up to the plank, but he curiously takes a pencil drop approach feet first. He survives the fall, and his painful cries are imitated by the Horgas and loud outward wails of despair. Dan, the most beautiful dying man in the world, isn't put out of his misery until Malachi finally gets to use that cudgel, another item from Swedish folklore supposedly used for brutal euthanasias like this. And I mean brutal. These ladies get extra hits in, patrons, even though the guy is already dead. What the fuck is the matter with you, Mr. Aster? I can't really show it in the public version of this video, but I was impressed by how they did this face smashing. Makeup artist Ivan Poarnik, a Hungarian protege of the legendary Dick Smith, constructed a fake head using pneumatic cylinders that could collapse the face in on itself with the push of a button. Another button would reset the head, allowing Aster to get as many takes as he needed, which could have been plenty. Dude is continually described as meticulous and thorough.
I mean, you can see that he's got a lot going on in his head, you know what I mean? And he's juggling a lot of different elements.
Despite being a cerebral guy who makes disturbing movies though, Aster still seems like a friendly, chill dude.
Just the slightest bit clockwise? I'm sorry, dude.
Steve tells her distressed guests the Ättestupa is customary and cool.
Instead of getting old and dying in pain and fear and shame, we give our life as a gesture.
It's a different perspective on death than what Danny is used to, and that might be helpful for her to hear. She's compartmentalized the loss of her family and has avoided dealing with those emotions. And now she finds a whole community of people who say they shouldn't fear death because it's natural and beautiful. Midsommar presents a lot of perspectives, and don't feel pressured to decide if they're entirely right or wrong. I think the movie itself wants you to live in the ambiguity. Ari Aster said he'd probably react like the Brits to the Atastupa, and I can say pretty confidently that I would as well. For Danny, it's left her anxious and distressed, a painful reminder of her tragic loss. There, Danny, just let it all out. Aw, damn it, editing, just let the girl cry! Christian's reaction is less severe, while Josh says he's completely fine and types away at his thesis. I really love what Josh's character brings to Midsommar and his interesting indifference towards Danny. Whereas Mark openly dislikes Danny and Pelle extends a friendship to her, Josh seems completely disinterested in her as a human being. He implies to Christian she's nothing more than a distraction from his thesis, he steps away from her conversation with Pelle as though it were an inconvenience, and he never pays her any attention unless she interacts with him first. It's such a good contrast for William Jackson Harper compared to his much warmer character on The Good Place. Josh is a cold and detached intellectual, which also informs how he treats Horga and their customs. He, Christian, and Pelle are all anthropology grad students, and this trip was primarily meant for Josh as research for his thesis.
Well, I'm doing my research on European midsummer traditions. These guys are just tagging along.
He spends the whole visit to Horga as an academic expedition, constantly taking notes and trying to snap pictures of their private ceremonies.
What is that book? Ruby Rader, our scripture. Can I read that?
He wields this esoteric knowledge as a status symbol, refusing to tell Danny and Christian what the Atastupa was the night before. And Danny really could have used a heads up there, Josh. Or a heads down, I guess. While Josh obsesses over his thesis, Christian has been floundering to start his, until now. He says that he's decided to do his thesis on Horga, eliciting the most emotional response we've seen from Josh. The thing that gets him pissed good and proper is an encroachment on his academic territory.
What the fuck? This is what I've been working toward, and you know it.
He tries complaining to Pelle about Christian's intrusive plans, but Pelle steps away and finds Danny packing. She's having a hard time and wants to leave, but chillax, girl, smell this cotton ball. It smells real good. Pelle tells her that he too lost his parents to a fire when he was young, but the community collectively raised him and gave him a home, which he says is something Danny needs right now, because she ain't getting it from Christian.
Danny, do you feel held by him? Does he feel like home to you?
Christian doesn't feel like home, and he doesn't want to go home either. Though Danny wants to leave, Christian's got a thesis to mooch, so he defends the Atastupa through cultural relativism.
We stick our elders in nursing homes. I'm sure they find that disturbing.
Yeah, but maybe not as disturbing as this, right, patrons? Because this is some disturbing shit. That night, Danny takes a sleeping pill and awakens to find herself being abandoned. Christian and the boys are driving away and leaving her stranded here. Oh, Mark, you're such a tool, and also a fool. Of course, the flashing police lights signal that this is just a nightmare, one stemming from the death of her parents and exacerbated by the Atastupa. Those two events are getting all mixed up in her head. It's pretty fucked. While Danny nightmares, others hatch plans. This ginger Swede is Maya, who entered the movie earlier with a huff. She kicked interest into Christian and has been making eyes at him aplenty. Now she takes a carved love rune and puts it beneath his bed in order to cast a love spell. The next day, Pelle tells Josh and a very excited Christian that they're cleared to do their theses on the Horga, provided they adhere to strict privacy restrictions. Gotta be respectful, you know? Unlike Mark, who's now pissing on a tree that is revealed to be the Rotvolta, the ancestral tree where their people's ashes are placed. You can actually see them putting the ashes there at the beginning of this scene, which doesn't cut for more than 2 minutes when Mark is caught marking his territory. Love that camera choreography. Christian begins his thesis research by asking how Horga avoids incest. He's told outsiders are brought in for mating purposes. Meanwhile, Josh gets a look at the Ruby Rader, Horga's holy scripture, which is finger painted by Reuben. Reuben's the latest in a long line of deliberately inbred oracles. The oracles finger paint the Ruby Rader, and the elders interpret its meaning.
Reuben is unclouded by normal cognition. He draws, and we, the elders, interpret.
And that's how you start a religion. After Josh is told he's not allowed to photograph the holy book, they hear a woman let out a scream from afar. Danny hears it too, as does Mark near the Yellow Temple, and a scream like that probably doesn't bode well after what Danny saw earlier. Connie and Simon had made plans to leave Horga after the Atastupa, but Simon disappeared before they could leave together. An elder named Father Odd told Connie her fiancé left without her, which doesn't make sense, and the last we saw of Connie, Father Odd was leading her away. It's dinner time again, and everyone's a mess. Danny doesn't believe the Horgas that Simon would leave Connie behind here, but when it comes to Christian, well, just ask her nightmares.
I could see you possibly doing that.
I love Pele's reaction of barely contained joy there. In fact, it's pretty rewarding to rewatch the movie and pay close attention to him. Wilhelm Blomgren is great as the smiley, soft-spoken guy you think is truly kind and good at first. You sympathize as you watch him barely tolerate his idiot friends.
What you doing?
Just working in the garden.
But I believe his main motivation is getting together with Danny, and I think if you watch his subtle reactions throughout, you can see him knowingly manipulate people and events. The other Horgas are manipulating things too. Christian gets a special meat pie with a pubic surprise and a cup of, strawberry lemonade instead of the regular kind. Shit, dude, don't drink that. It's actually menstrual aid. Gross. Mark's on edge because a guy named Ulf has been staring daggers at him since the tree pea. He welcomes an abrupt emergency exit when an attractive maiden says that she can show him.
I'll be back, I guess. She's gonna show me.
Spoiler alert, Mark won't be coming back. So just want to shout out British actor Will Poulter for playing the character with such exquisite obnoxiousness. He was also the best part of Netflix's Bandersnatch. Josh, perhaps feeling threatened by Christian, can't stop thinking about the Ruby Rotter. It consumes him day and night. While everyone else sleeps, he sneaks out of the barn and into the temple. Directly against what he was told, he begins to take pictures of the Holy Horga text. He's caught by someone who he at first thinks is Mark, but would Mark be standing there with his dong hanging out? Well, maybe, but that's not the point. That was the point of the mallet. I'll count Mark as dead first, now that we see that his face is on somebody else's face. Not sure when it happened after he was led away, but now we can say with confidence he's gone. Pretty sure it's that Ulf guy who's wearing the fool's face now, something foreshadowed earlier by the name of a children's game.
What are the kids playing?
Skin the pool.
Ulf's also wearing Mark's leg skin as a pair of Nabrak or necro pants, something Viking warriors did with their fallen foes according to Scandinavian folklore. I'm gonna count Josh as dead now too, despite his little death twitches he gives as he dies. Dude ain't coming back. At breakfast, the Horgas announce that Josh and Mark are missing, as is the Ruby Rotter, implying they stole the book and left. Christian is commanded to go see the Horgas elder Siv, and Danny is instructed to join the ceremonial festivities. It's the May Queen dance competition, and as this Horgan says,
this is the big one.
Danny's given a psychoactive tea and is told to join them in their super special breathing style. Hoo-ha! Right as the drugs start hitting grassy feet levels, the Great Horga Dance-Off begins. Bow, Danny. This is when you're supposed to bow. Don't you? Never mind. Just dance. It's gonna be okay. This lengthy scene of movement and music is one of the film's most memorable. Swedish choreographer Anna Vanuk designed the dance, and her movement inspired Astor as he developed the Horga runic alphabet. The dance was filmed over 2 days, with the dancers and camera moving around and amidst each other. It's the way Astor likes to direct his films.
He said, look, you're going to be dancing with the camera for 2 months. That's how I work. It's choreography.
This is also a good time to point out the movie's ridiculous costume design.
I love what you're wearing.
My frock?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, quite girly.
Andrea Flesch researched Swedish folk dresses to design these 500+ outfits, every one of them handmade using 100-year-old linen to accurately depict the self-sufficient way Horgas live.
Yeah, we make those clothes special for every winter and summer solstice.
They were then individually painted by hand, giving each of them a completely unique design. Norse runes were embroidered, some with a very specific purpose. For instance, Ylva's outfit is adorned with the Tiwa's rune, which represents the sacrifice of the individual for the well-being of the whole society. It's a rune that also shows up on Christian's attire as a bit of foreshadowing. The details of this movie are so impressive. During Danny's dance-off, Christian meets with Siv in her shack adorned with pictures like this one of a burning bear. She tells him he's a good match for Maya, who wants to mate with him. He's noticed.
I think I ate one of her pubic hairs.
Sounds probably right.
I love how sometimes this movie can feel a little Wes Anderson. As Christian joins the spectators, the drug-addled dancing goes on, with contestants gradually falling out until they've reached the final 8. Finger cheers, everyone! Come on, Christian, finger cheers! Christian's too out of it to finger cheer right now, and he doesn't want this drug tea when it's offered to him.
I'm worried I'll have a bad trip.
Oh, no, you won't. You won't. Trust me.
But once again, these characters are Arrowhead ignorers, and after taking a glance towards Maya, he downs the laced lemonade. The drugs hit Danny so hard she starts thinking she can speak Swedish, even though she's definitely just saying gibberish here. this. But the jibber jabber does the job, and Danny finds herself the last one standing. Aw shit, good job Dan Dan! Finger cheer stampede! As winner of Last Dance Off, Danny's designated the Maid Queen, complete with a flower crown that gapes, a close-up picture for posterity, and a celebratory kiss from Pele, cause I swear that guy's just trying to get with her. Kristen is left on the outs as the drugs further distort Danny's vision. The faces in this scene are so goddamn creepy, as is Danny's dead mom walking past her in the crowd. Want more creepy shit? No problem, cause as table serving Danny's being carried away, the foliage behind her imitates her sister with a gas hose in her mouth. Holy fuck, man. Danny is seated at the head of the table for a feast filmed during one of the hottest days in Hungary's hottest summer on record. That food on the table wound up rotting and getting maggots, which is almost as nauseating as what these drugs are doing to Danny's perspective. But hey, at least them leaves feel good. Christian's consumption of that tea has left him in a really bad place. Doesn't help that he finds himself so unwelcome at this table. I don't think Irish actor Jack Rayner gets enough credit for his performance here. Christian's a gaslighting piece of shit boyfriend, but Rayner plays him so pitiable you can't help but feel bad. Also, I mean, look at him. Dude's really messed up right now. He's left on his own when Danny is told she needs to go bless the crops. Damn, May Queen gets treated like a princess here. A carriage to ride in and arm-pointing escorts. With this, the Horga has completed Danny and Christian's division. They've exploited a weak relationship and will now use both of them for their own purposes. A deconstructed poke bowl is placed in the ground, and Danny blesses the crops by circling above it and repeating a holy song. Damn, Flo, that was beautiful. Meanwhile, Christian is led from the dinner table and extra drugged up with something the Horgas say is for his vitality. Not exactly sure what that Viagra dust was, but Christian's clearly not in a healthy state of mind, which is why it's fucked up when he's then invited into the sex bar. Maya is waiting for him, and although he goes to her, this is a pretty clear case of rape to me, with how drugged and pressured Christian is right now. It's also a completely over-the-top scene, and I'll admit to laughing at the absurdity of a woman trying to help by pushing on his butt. It's a messed up scene in a number of ways, and Ruben definitely shouldn't be watching this. Come on, get that kid out of there! All the ladies start moaning in unison, so loudly that Danny hears it after she gets back. She sees through the door that Christian is mating with Maya, and it causes her to have a psychotic breakdown, in Florence Pugh's words. The other women in the village tend to her and even begin to cry with her, acknowledging and validating her emotional pain. It's a direct contrast to the way Danny's tears were met with stony silence by Christian in the movie's opening. He was unable to provide a feeling of home to her, and since then, Danny's been denied her emotions by both circumstance and even editing. Now she can let it out with women who share her grief through empathy and understanding. She's found herself a home. After the mating finishes, Christian finds himself with more clarity. Suddenly afraid, he runs outside, and Jack Rayner hangs dong for a good long while as he runs all over the place. Good on him. He sees Josh's foot sticking out of the ground, and then inside a chicken shack finds Simon. His body has been given the old blood eagle. That's a ritualistic execution from Norse mythology that pulls the lungs back to create a pair of wings. Christian sees Simon's lungs breathing, and this isn't just the drugs. The script says he's still alive. But I'ma add him to the count now anyway, cause dude's as good as dead, strung up with flowers in his eyes. Christian is given like his 7th drug of the day and falls to the ground unconscious. He wakes up later in the most horrifying way possible.
You can't speak. You can't move. All right?
Man, do I hate these fucking cultists. At least they make good flower gowns, even if the May Queen's all frowny wearing it. This climactic costume worn by Danny is another crowning achievement of Andrea Flesch. She had her architect husband design the hoop skirt base, which was then covered in leaves and 10,000 fake flowers, causing it to weigh 33 pounds in the end. Holy shit. Steve talks about how their ceremony requires 9 human sacrifices. 4 must be outsiders, so-called new bloods, whose sacrifices have already been made. Those 4 are matched by 4 Horgas from the community, the 2 cliff divers, represented by little tree people, and 2 volunteers who step up now. Ingmar, Pele's friend who lured Connie and Simon here, and Ulf, the guy who got mad at Mark and probably wore his face and penis. The May Queen must choose the 9th sacrificee between a randomly selected Horga or her paralyzed, drugged up ex. She chooses Christian because, as Ari Aster says, this movie is a perverse wish fulfillment fantasy. I think that morally this is inexcusable, but thematically it's explainable. Danny is an emotional mess, Christian is the world's worst boyfriend, and she just saw him pumping away away at Maya in a barn. I get why the character would do this, but I don't think it should be celebrated as a Yas Queen moment. She's still condemning a disabled rape victim to an awful, hideous death. But again, I don't think the movie is saying it's right or asking us to agree with it. After all, we cut from Danny to the bloated body of Connie, reminding us that this cult has killed completely innocent people. You could argue that Mark and Josh deserved what they got, but Ari Aster says they all would have died no matter their behavior. The Horgas may live an idyllic life, but they're also a murderous cult. I think that makes them excellent horror villains. Connie is wheeled into the Yellow Triangle Temple, as is the stuffed body of Mark, now done up in a jester's outfit to befit his role as the fool. Simon and Josh are also seen dead and stuffed with flowers, and they're joined by the Tree People in all their branchy glory. The movie's music hits an amazing crescendo and climax here, and while I can't include a clip, it'd be a crime if I didn't mention it. Bobby Krillick, who also makes music as the Haxan Cloak, wrote a truly powerful and beautiful score for this film. The bear from earlier is killed and eviscerated, and the still incapacitated Christian is placed inside its skin. That way, these murderous weirdos can pretend that he represents an evil spirit who needs to be vanquished. He's placed inside the barn, with Ulf and Ingmar taking seats behind him, and with the touching of torches to hay bales, the temple is lit ablaze. The 3 living people inside are burned to death as the building goes up. Christian, who's still completely unable to move, and Ulf and Ingmar, who were given tree sap to make the experience painless, but who still end up screaming on their way out of this world. I think that lie, made to their own sacrificial members, is another way the movie tells us the Horgas are dangerous manipulators. This is underlined when the score changes from happy and triumphant to sinister and discordant as we see the Horgas screaming in supposed empathy. Yet the score does resolve and flourish before the movie ends, and the final shot we see is Danny smiling, happy at last. Some interpret that to mean this is supposed to be a happy ending, but I think it's far more complicated than that. Danny may think she's happy now, she's finally found a place where her emotions are validated, but the whole movie is a textbook example of how cults take advantage of the emotionally vulnerable. That's not just my interpretation either. Ari Aster has confirmed he wanted Danny's catharsis to feel wrong.
By the end, I guess I hope that people will feel moved and unsettled and confused.
Well, bud, I'd say you succeeded because I'm unsettled and confused as fuck. Hope I can still manage to count since I've got to get to the numbers. That does feel good. Oh, can't wear this, it's way too green. 12 people died in Midsommar, with the victims consisting of 4 women and 8 men. One of them was dressed like a bear, but don't get confused, there's no bear meat in this pie chart. With a runtime of 141 minutes, that left us with a kill on average every 11.75 minutes. I'll give the golden chainsaw for coolest kill to the elders at the Atastupa, both of them. It's a horrific moment with absolutely shocking gore, and like the car scene in Hereditary, shows you the movie ain't fucking around. And I'm opting not to give a dull machete this time around. Every death was impactful in its own way, even when what actually killed them was done off screen. It's all horrifying. And that's it. Midsommar came out in 2019 and cemented Ari Aster as a big-time art house horror director. His movies aren't for everyone, but goddamn does he make them well. Until next time, I'm James A. Janice. This has been The Kill Count. Thanks a lot for watching this week's Kill Count. I want to thank some patrons like Michelangelo Yarborough, Patrick Goodall, Keegan Galindez, Ashley Nassell, Dragonheart, Clay, and Bailey Bay. Didn't expect this to end up being a double-length episode, but I should have. The movie's 2.5 hours long. I'm actually at home in Michigan this weekend for Father's Day, so that Nightmare on Elm Street ranking video won't come out until Wednesday. Thanks for your understanding, and be good people.